Hey traders, Raghee here. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Let's get a quick audio and video check in. I believe we are good to go. I can see everyone's chat. All right, excellent, excellent. So let's get to it. So good morning from Laredo. Excellent. All right. What's up with the energy sector? All right, we can jump into that. It's been a dumpster fire. There's your technical term, but I'm more than happy to jump into some crude oil, some RBOB, and the XLE. Good morning. Good morning. 5x5. All right. So let's get to it. You know what? We'll kick this off with energy. I am absolutely good with that. Okay, so let's dive into that here. All right. Energy is an interesting conversation, and it really should. And we can start this conversation off with a look at crude. In fact, let's do this. Take a look at crude oil and a longer term daily time frame view. So not that energy stocks have to necessarily move with the underlying commodity. That's not always the case. They do have their own narratives, although yes, they're tethered, but they do have their own narrative. The narrative for crude, gang, is we've had that summer rally, which has turned into chop. When an uptrend goes into chop, I'm going to focus on the continuing bullishness that I believe is the dominant psychology. The dominant psychology is the trend that was. So we have a saying, the Ragheeism is respect the trend that was, which really comes straight from Dow theory, which basically says a trend isn't broken until it is. I think respect the trend that was is a little bit more actionable. So once I go from a mark up into the choppy distribution, at that point, when we have this market that's stuck in a range, remember that it's still going to have a little bit more of the wind at its back from the trend that preceded it. And in this case, this was up. So that means the oversold buys, market going down to support, are going to be the priority. So I'm going to anticipate this market continue to be choppy. And I'm going to anticipate that if there's ever a time that I'm interested in trading it, it's going to be based on the lows that I'll buy into. Keep in mind, and I was just putting this in on the daily notes, is we do have OPEC meetings all day starting today. So we could see assorted sound bites from different energy ministers, things like that. So just heads up if you're playing crude. Major hot zone volatility event today. All right. So how does that then affect XLE? XLE definitely got a shot in the arm after the vaccine news came out. And what happened is the expectation was that, well, if there's a vaccine, we're all going back to work, and that means there's going to be demand in crude oil again. For me, the way that I check the reality of that, because remember, this is perception and this is optimism, which is terrific. It's fine. But it's not necessarily rooted in the reality of the way people will respond. I mean, there's a lot of people saying they're not going to even take the vaccine. There's a lot of issues around the vaccine, issues that people may decide they don't want to take it. So it's a far stretch to say, well, the vaccine's here and people are going to get back in their cars and get back to work. How do I measure that, right? That's just supposition. How do we measure that? We measure that by looking at traffic, right? We measure that by looking at TomTom has some very interesting traffic data. And until I see traffic data mimic a lot of what we saw a year ago, 2019, right? So what did traffic look like? Well, November is actually fine. We knew COVID was here, but we didn't really know. So 2019 traffic, I'd like to see traffic at least mimic what we saw then. Then I know the traffic narrative is real, and then that there's a good chance for the markets to continue higher. But I think that XLE is benefiting from that. And the second thing it's benefiting from is just momentum chasing sector rotation. We can call sector rotation, but at the end of the day, it's usually two things at work. It's what's undervalued and chasing momentum. It just sounds so official and intelligent when we call it sector rotation. So be aware of that. I've been leaving this alone. I've still had a little bit of a bearish outlook on it, but mostly in the names that are not benefiting from the move higher. Names like WMB and names like PXD have been near the top of my list, but I'm not going to go A, pick a bottom, and B, I don't know that this is going to be a sustainable move. This is a downtrend that's turning into a choppy market. I'm still pretty bearish overall in the XLE. So yes, it's benefiting from that vaccine narrative. It's benefiting from a little bit of the sector rotation of, well, what's been downtrodden, what's been beaten up. So when the money's coming out of work from home stocks, and the money's coming out of those tech names, where is it going? Right? It's like watching water, right? If it can't go this way, it's going to build up and go somewhere else. If it can't go this way, it's going to go another way. Money is like that. Think about that. It's like electrical currency. We call money currency. I think that all this moves like a current. So I think if you can keep an eye on what the current may be, in sector rotation usually likes downtrodden markets, and then it becomes a momentum game. And you can see that really clearly here. Also, don't underestimate how much the overall tide is going to benefit the market. Excuse me. Woo. All right, it's going to benefit the market. I have a new incense I'm running here in the office. I don't know if it's tickling my nose. Anyway, so over to, so what are the ramifications more broadly for XLE? Mostly on industrials, mostly on the Dow, not necessarily as directly on S&P, not at all on the NASDAQ. And one thing you have to remind yourself is when you see the more downtrodden markets, your XLE, your XLFs, they're the popular kid in class right now. When you start to see the real popular kids in class, your NASDAQ, your SMH, your cloud computings, your transports, when those start to become favored again, and I think one thing to watch would be what's happening with the NAS. When I looked earlier today, it was a relative outperformer. When this starts to become something that becomes a relative outperformer, and I think compared to the S&P right now and to the Dow, let me show you the S&P here. See how much weaker it is. Again, you can see how much weaker this is. So that's what I mean by relative outperformance. So if we start to see money flow back into tech, we start to see that. Please don't play tech broadly, right? Just don't go whole hog into the NAS. Think about the relative outperforming sectors and break the NASDAQ down. SMH, CLOU, I've liked those a lot over the past few months, but what is XLK, XLC, and XLY doing? What are those markets doing? And I would keep an eye on those. Those three have been very, very good. Okay, so then let's tackle a few more questions here. Good morning. Good morning. Tesla's been a choppy, the comment is Tesla UGG. Tesla's been an UGG for a long time, not to be salt in a wound, but gang, remember, parabolic markets are parabolic markets. You latch onto a parabolic market, it feels great when you're moving with the flow. Once this market stops moving in a parabolic nature, probably the hardest thing for traders to do is adjust to the fact that it's no longer on a rocket ride and it's continuing to consolidate. I wouldn't be bearish, Tesla, right? I wouldn't be bearish, but it's not the market that it was in July and August. And this is where it's tough. I get a lot of questions about Tesla, not just here in our pre-market, but it's in general. And it's really tough for me to say. It sounds a little mean, and maybe it's designed to leave a memory. And it's advice that I got from my first mentor. So I pass this on in a heartfelt way. Don't confuse an uptrend with brains. I was told that very young, and I took that very hard. And I think that lesson told to me in my early 20s has served me throughout my career. Gang, Tesla was a market that took off like a rocket. It's not behaving that way anymore. You can do what you did then. I can do what I did back then. I traded that. But I never forgot that this isn't fancy trading on behalf of Raghee. This is just a market taking off. So please, when a market stops behaving that way and you know that's why you were benefiting from it, say, wait a minute, let me go find something else that may be parabolic and I can go apply that approach, or leave a sideways market alone. And it's always tricky for me to tell people that. But I was told that early on, and after I stopped taking it personal, it was probably some of the best advice I've ever had. And that's probably, Tesla's probably one of the most commonly asked symbols that I get in the market. And really, another one is anything involved with tech and the work from home. So I get a lot of questions about Peloton, Teladoc, ZM, Zoom. Same conversation. They benefited from a very specific environment. Again, Peloton was never going to do this. This is not a well-run, fancy, innovative company. This is a bicycle with Netflix, but it was the right product for the right time. So when people say, would you own Peloton? I said, well, why did Peloton benefit? Because all home equipment was flying off the shelf. I think I told you guys yesterday, I'm still waiting 4 months later for my ski erg from Concept 2. And if Concept 2 is a publicly traded company, they look a lot like Peloton. Peloton, before the lockdown? Really? Let's see. This is what Peloton was, and this is what it became during. So that's what I mean. And that's so tough. And I think it's the same conversation as Tesla in so many ways. So man, we're being a little, we're bringing it, we're being really real, a little salt in the wound first thing in the morning. And it's not meant in any way for anybody to go, you're telling me that it was just a trend? No, if you stuck with the long side, you know how many people are stepping in front of Bitcoin, trying to short that, or shorting Peloton? How many knuckleheads out there were shorting Tesla when it was parabolic, right? So definitely pat yourself on the back for having not fought the trend, but know why you profited. I think Tesla and Peloton very similar in that regard. So, a little tough medicine this morning. Remember, chop. Questions about the chop right now. Number one, recognize when we're going into chop. How do you recognize what kind of markets you are good at trading? This is something I talked about in the free video yesterday. Gang, the toughest thing about trading is, I'll tell you what the toughest thing about trading is. Get up, go to the bathroom, and look in the mirror. That's it. That's the toughest thing about trading. I think the worst advice we get is that the market's out to get you. Lie, stupid, misinformed. Not true. The fact of the matter is the market doesn't even know or care you're there. We're individual retail traders. I don't think there's any hedge funds with $1 billion under management right now, right? I don't think so. If you are, welcome. But I'm pretty sure most of us are managing our own grub stakes, however large or small it is. The market doesn't even know we're there, right? So it's not out to get us. Let that go. The market moves in the direction of the most stops. The market moves in the direction of the trend that is and the trend that was. That's your high probability play. I don't want to bet against the S&P, and the S&P, as of yesterday, just went double green. So I get a lot of people saying, well, how much higher can it go? As high as it wants. Don't think the market is overextended when it's in a trend. I don't think the market's overextended when it has the full force of the Treasury and the Federal Reserve at its back. And same thing goes for when the market was heading lower. How much lower are we going to go? Where is the bottom is not the question. Any more than where is the top now is the question. The question is the backbone of the move. In other words, if we have a double green market, ask yourself this simple question. Where is the support within the uptrend? When the market retraces, where is the support? That's the backbone, right? Same thing for me was when the market was heading lower. I wasn't asking myself where the bottom was. That's for chuckleheads who put suits and ties on and spend their time on CNBC. I respect none of them. That's their job. But as a trader, I don't care what they have to say. You know how much time it takes to be on television? What I'm doing right now is looking at the markets with you all, right? Be very careful listening to advice from people who aren't looking at the markets and who are more concerned about getting on television. Very different thing. And the folks on TV will encourage this whole top picking, bottom picking thing. Please don't get suckered into that. What you want to ask yourself within the context of a trend is if it's chop, right? Let's start with chop because that's the one that's typically tougher. we're in chop, ask yourself, well, what was the trend that preceded the chop? In this case, it was an uptrend. Focus on the oversold buys. The probability is it's not going to be a V bottom or a V top. All right. Now, V bottoms have come in now twice. I will say that. Both times they were fueled by the Federal Reserve. That's 2019. And in 2020, it was fueled by the Treasury and the Federal Reserve. So those are usually a high degree, and I don't mean this in an insidious way, but a high degree of manipulation by the powers that be. And that's fine. That's their job. But I get a lot of questions now, how much higher can the market go? I don't care. All I care is will it correct and retrace its steps? The Dow is still a yellow market, but again, I'm going to favor the long side of the market. And by the way, in chop, when the markets are, even though they might have directional bias, keep in mind that you can get a little bit more granular. Like I said, you don't have to trade the NAS, you can trade the SMH. You don't have to trade the NASDAQ QQQ. You can look at relative outperforming stocks within the heavily weighted sectors. And I would highly recommend that. So right now, if I'm looking at the NASDAQ, SMH, XLC, and as you can see here, I just ran through all these different sectors. What popped out? XLC, SMH is a broader sector. That doesn't include my then getting more granular, would say something like the XLY, which has been exceedingly good to me, and saying, well, if XLY isn't double green, Starbucks is, Booking is, GM is, Nike's trying to reorganize, right? Don't spend your time on the Home Depots and the McDonald's and the Lowe's of the world right now, right? Look at where you have that clarity of trend. All right, let me tackle a few questions here in the last few minutes. So when you have chop, get more granular. Don't play broadly. Broad sectors or broad indices, it's not going to favor you. But right now, the S&P, just as of yesterday, went double green. Okay, so that's one of the ways to survive choppy market. Master Jurgen, I don't believe there's such a thing as smart money. There's big money, and they'll typically leave the XLF XLE story, mostly XLE, once I think the NASDAQ and the S&P get going again. There's no gap psychology in the broader averages today. I'm not interested in anything in Tesla. I would not recommend. There's so many other better places to play right now, gang. I think if anything, spend some time on the watch list. Ask yourself, I'm gonna tell you guys, sometimes it's gonna sound like a little bit of tough love. Sometimes ask yourself, why am I trading that particular stock? A lot of fish in the sea. Why that one? I have almost zero interest in Tesla because there's so many other better names: Nike, Garmin, FedEx. Don't get so attached to a single name, please. Make watch list building 80% of what you do. Make the trading 20% of what you do. All right, let's see. And I hope that helps. Every day I re-anchor Esteban, the 10-day moving average. You bet. I talked about that in the free video last night. Okay. And let's see. Yeah, I mean, sometimes you can just be the right product at the right time. Yeah, I mean, hey, I don't begrudge Peloton anything. Good for them. But let's not confuse that with a company that was something that was wanted before this. Now, the real question is, does work from home and does gym behavior change for a certain segment of the population in a more permanent way where Peloton can have a more stable business? Not the rocket ship it was on, but does it have the ability to continue to sell those bikes? And do they, broaden their horizons into other things? Who knows? Yeah, by the way, on the economic calendar, for those of you that checked Forex Factory, we have Powell. Now, when I looked at trading economics, I believe Bostic, Daly, Williams were all on the schedule too. So be aware of that because it looks like a very busy, if that calendar was correct, looks like a very busy afternoon. So, all right, so let's see here. I'm just about out of time. I got to head on over to my other gig, which is over in the futures room. So, all right. So let me get out of the way, gang. It always feels like there's so many questions that I didn't get a chance to address, but we're here every morning from 9 to 9:20. So get your questions in early. I just go right down the list and check out the free videos from Simpler Trading. A lot of these topics I remember from our conversations in the morning, and I think about you all in some of these great questions when I'm answering when I'm creating the free video. One of them was the question about the way I anchor the VWAPs, and that's what yesterday's free video was all about. You're on our Simpler Trading Facebook page or our Simpler Trading YouTube channel. Check out the YouTube channel, sign up for our free newsletter. You'll get these videos from me and the other traders here at Simpler every single day. So thanks as always for being part of this. I mean, we are growing like crazy. I give you guys if you guys have requests for the content, let me know. Give me a shout, Rod. Can we tackle this topic? And just finally, gold. We're long gold, gang. I'm just waiting for gold to find some momentum through 1880. So I like gold a lot. Yeah. All right, gang. I got to go. I will see you all tomorrow. I'll take a look at some of these questions here, and maybe they'll find their way into the free video tonight. Okay, so you guys can all check them out, whether you're a member or not. But I encourage you guys to check out our masteries, our options room, our futures room. I think you're going to find a great community there. All right. Be good to each other, gang. I'll see you tomorrow.